welcome to this week's episode of the Women's Soccer Show. Apologies for the late release of this episode.
I'm curious what reason you're going to use for this, Helen.
I don't know whether to be honest. I don't know whether to tell a lie. I haven't decided. Okay, I'm going to give you both reasons, and then
for
you
the
guys
record,
can decide for yourselves.
There was one reason, but okay, go ahead. Use them both.
So option A, it was because I went out for a run thinking that we were going to be recording a different day. And then poor Sarah's like messaging me like, is everything okay? Are you okay? Are your family okay? Is everything okay? And I'm like, whatever, you freak. Why is she messaging me that? I was like thinking maybe there's been a big COVID outbreak or something on BBC News. And she's like checking in on me. Or there'd been an explosion or something, you know, like I did that. I remember I was in San Francisco in 2011, I'm gonna say, and me and my best friend turned the news on and they were like, there is a war on the streets in London City, and we were like, oh my god. So we're trying to call our families drastically, like, Mom, Dad, oh my god. My sisters lived in London, my best friend's dad lived in London. We were like, oh my god. And my sister lived in Camden where it all started out. So I'm like, Claire, I just need to know if you're all right.
Oh, no.
Like, what the fuck? I'm in the pub. What do you want? I thought you were in America. I was like, I am. I just saw the news. She's like, I'm in the pub. Leave me alone.
She's like, I'm trying to get drunk, Helen. Shut up.
Yeah. Oh my god. Okay, so option number 2, which now is evidently the lie, is Sarah was too hungover to record. So option 1 or option 2, I wonder which one it'll be. And soz. I feel like it would be really unfair to the Manchester City fans for us to not talk about their massive, massive win over Brighton this week. 7-1, comprehensive win, and they did it without the Tower of Terror.
Tower of Power.
Oh. Oh no! The Tower of Terror is really awful nickname. I'm so sorry.
I kind of like it better.
Tower of Power, of course. That makes way more sense.
Tower of Terror rhymes a little bit better, though.
So maybe without the Tower of Terror being there,
the Tower of Power. Did you do that on purpose?
I feel like I'm gonna try and just patent Tower of Terror, if that's okay with everyone. So Chloe Kelly, I don't think that we can not talk about Chloe Kelly. 3 assists, 1 goal at the weekend. Like, what did you make of it?
Chloe Kelly was so impressive. She obviously was a part of more than half of their goals. She was playing out on the wing as well. Let's just go down the right side. I mean, Lucy Bronze, Georgia Stanway, and Chloe Kelly all playing on the right side. No wonder so much of their attack went down the right. That first goal was absolutely beautiful combination between the 3 of them. Chloe Kelly has been so impressive all season long. I don't want to say underrated because I know she's rated so highly, but I don't think that she's in the conversation enough about goal scorers or opportunity creators, if you can say it that way. You look at the top scorers in the league and the top assists in the league, and she lands in both of those top 5 lists. So Chloe Kelly is a big part of why Manchester City is really connecting like they are right now.
Yeah, I think connection's a really good way of putting it. And they had a bit of a dilemma earlier in the season with that right wing position, who was going to play in that right wing position, how they were going to make that work. And actually they've put Chloe Kelly into that position. She's such a natural down that right hand side. They were able therefore to utilise Ellen White, who's still got it, and played her up front in that Brighton game, and she's such a force in that position. Like, she's not just tall, physical, but like she can do 1-touch goals, and she's just got the ability to kind of like change a game. But yeah, I think Chloe Kelly, Georgia Stanway, and Lucy Bronze down the right hand side were like a work of art, really. And to be honest, when you think about it, the only person who's in a position is Lucy Bronze, because Georgia Stanway is playing in like a deeper midfield role. I noticed Georgia Stanway didn't like get into the box, like get into the mix in a sort of centre forward or centre attacking midfielder kind of way. She was kind of on the edge of the area, and I was like, this is new.
Georgia Stanway is such a dynamic player. She can play the number 9, she can play on the wing, and we just saw that she can absolutely play in the center mid, even the holding center mid position. She's a tenacious defender also. I know she gets a lot of credit for her runs off the ball and what she can do on offense, but I don't think she gets enough credit for what she can do defensively.
Completely agree. Like she's willing and able to like get back and support, but I think that there's not many players that are out and out attackers that have the willingness to do it like Georgia does. And then on top of it all, I get the impression, obviously, like, what do I know, but I get the impression she's really liked in camp. Like, I think people really get on with her. I heard like Sam Mewis and Rose Lavelle talking about how she's such a joker, and like she always steals their little monitors from their sports bras and stuff and hides them, and she's like, "Whoa, I've not done it." And I just think, like, she could imagine her being a bit of a cheeky chappy around camp.
I get the same impression, and that makes me so happy. And to hear that they're all messing around, like some U.S. players and some Lionesses, just like having a laugh in the locker room, it makes me happy.
Can I tell you one of my favourite stories about like the Georgia Stanway Mewis kind of banter? So Mewis was like, "Oh my God, I'm always mocked by everyone. Oh my God, like whatever." And she's like, "They totally go for us all the time. Always sarcasm from these English people. Like, I'm still getting used to it and all that." And she goes, "They kept on doing this joke, and it's so boring. But basically, whenever I'd wear like my camo clothes, I'd come to train. They'd be like,
oh
where's
my God.
Sam? Where is she?" I'm here, guys. I'm here.
I'd probably have the
really
same
funny
reaction as Sam Mewis to that. Just like, come on, guys.
On the other side, I'm really worried about Brighton. I'm genuinely concerned for them this season. Remember last season, I saw them as kind of a bit of a force. Hope Powell is an icon, and she's an absolutely brilliant manager. But I do wonder, do they need a change? That other clubs around them are starting to make those moves. You know, West Ham, Birmingham, they're starting to make those moves on new management when they're struggling. 7 losses now for Brighton. One of the things that concerns me is that they have the second worst goals conceded this season, but they also have the second worst goals scored as well. So the only team worse than them are Bristol in terms of their form of scoring goals and defending their goal. And, you know, regardless of the fact they're playing against Manchester City, they shouldn't be conceding 7 goals. So I just think really worrying times now for Brighton. I think the only saving grace is I can't see Bristol getting out of this. But it's still not great, right?
It's not great. And I think generally when you look at the table in the WSL, there's going to be a gap between the top teams and the bottom teams. That's just kind of how it falls. But I think that for the bottom teams, what you want to see is some form of an upward trajectory from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And we just haven't really seen that, which is what's a little bit disheartening. We haven't seen that when it comes to their defense, and we haven't seen it when it comes to their offense.
One thing that I think is quite cool, and we've kind of talked about it before, is like, I guess the way that I think about it is like there's the green and the amber and the red, and before there was just the green and the red. So you had the green, which was like Chelsea, Arsenal, Manchester City. Then you had the red, which was like Bristol City, few seasons ago Liverpool, and those sort of clubs. But now you have the Evertons and the Readings and these clubs that like can really, and Manchester United before they obviously careered into the green section. But yeah, you know, and speaking of Reading, we both talked about it. They really should have pulled away 3 points against Aston Villa at the weekend.
Absolutely. That scoreline was not indicative of the game itself. That should not have been the scoreline. Reading really had the majority of the possession. They had so many chances, and they were only able to put 2 away. Reading, of course, came back with a goal in the 91st minute as the equalizer, which is really just a dagger to the heart for all Reading fans. I'm so sorry for anybody out there. That's a rough one.
Yeah, they deserve to win. They deserve to win that game. They deserve to hit 3 points. And from an Aston Villa perspective, every point counts. Before that game, just looking at the table as it stood, there was a couple of points between them and Bristol. You only have 2 points at the bottom of the table. And I think Villa, every point that they can grab from the clubs like Reading are massive points. Reading will be super disappointed. However, I've got a bit of a bone to pick on this game, and I'd love your opinion on it. Anyone who didn't watch the game, for about the last quarter, you could not see the grass because the snow was so heavily falling. Now, in men's football, I just don't see it happening. I just don't see it being something that would happen. But I've watched back that goal and I still can't see it clearly. So do you think that the Reading players management will feel hard done by in any way?
It's hard to say that because you have to look at the whole game, and Reading had so many opportunities to put another one away that you can't really pin it just on that. Watching the game and watching the pitch basically disappear was absolutely wild. I couldn't really tell what was happening in the last goal either. It is hard, though, to pin it just on weather. I think that it's obviously a conversation around, would this have happened in a men's game? Because that's unfortunately always a conversation around a women's game versus a men's game. I will give credit, though, that it's always hard when it is in the middle of a game. It's a little bit of an easier deciding factor when it's in the lead up to the game and it's snowing and you can't see the pitch. It's easier to call it off rather than if it's in the 60th minute. However, the fact that so many games were called off because of weather, I think, is a larger issue and points to maybe a bigger issue as a whole of why are all of these professional women's teams playing on pitches that can't be sustained or aren't sustained well enough.
And like, why are we not, moving mountains to make games happen as well? Like, why are we not seeing it as a priority to make a game happen? One of my friends, Rasheen Murray, is an Arsenal fan. She said, am I being really naive, or could they have checked the weather yesterday and been like, you know what, we're one club, just play at the Emirates, Ashton Gate, there's no fans, so we won't need to prepare the groundsman or anything? Or is that idea too simple? And I read it and I thought, I don't think it is too simple. And I replied saying, things are only complicated if you make them complicated. If they can move mountains for the men's game, then they can make it work for women. You just think, how many games were cancelled? How many people who were going to have a shift as security working that game have had a call saying, sorry, no gig anymore? How many journalists have had to U-turn and go home? And it just feels like there's so many pitches at the top tier that weren't being used that day because the men's games were FA Cup games, and Arsenal, for instance, weren't playing at their home stadium. Could they not have just I don't know whether it just feels so simple, but could they not just made the games go ahead, just made it happen?
I totally agree. For me, it's that frustration plus the frustration of the fact that the women were in this situation to begin with. Why are they not playing at top tier stadiums to begin with? Why are we canceling matches that wouldn't be canceled if they were played at better kept stadiums, better kept fields? Then you get into the better kept fields, and now I'm going to go down a rabbit hole, just like a downward spiral of better kept fields for athletes means fewer injuries and et cetera, et cetera. And it's just absolutely to say that we shouldn't have been disappointed that these games were canceled. It wasn't just weather.
To put it in perspective,
these situations are avoidable.
The best club in the WSL is Manchester City, and I think I'd debate until I was blue in the face on this, but I've been following the women's game for a long time, and I live 5 minutes away from the Academy Stadium, and when you go past the night before the games, you can see through the glass onto the pitch just on one corner, and if you look in, they've got lights over the pitch. They've got those special lights that help the growth of the grass, and at halftime they've got groundsmen that come and just give the grass a prod. So they should. This is elite women's football, and we're trying to improve it. So I just want to say that because obviously it really did affect the result, and come the end of the season, if that's the difference between Reading maybe fighting to get into Europe or not, then they might be remembering this moment in this game and thinking, yeah, we were really screwed by lack of professionalism. I think my favourite game of the weekend was the Man U versus Birmingham game. And not for the reasons that you'd think. I absolutely...
Not because of Casey Stoney and Manchester United?
Oh, you are obsessed. You need to get over it. I was so impressed by Birmingham. The first half was 0-0. Yeah, okay, they didn't get a shot on target for the entire 90 minutes. Yeah, okay.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, that very well could have been their strategy going in.
Totally.
So you have to do what you have to do to beat some teams. And sometimes I really despise the phrase park the bus, but sometimes you got to park the bus. And I am not a proponent of it. I have had it done to me, and it is the most infuriating thing in the world. But
that's what you're hoping for,
that's strategy.
Right? You're hoping
that's strategy.
The opposition are going to get frustrated and start to toss the ball long.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I know we're not talking about Manchester United, but just to say about Manchester United, they are they're very mentally strong. They're very mentally stable. If I were to bet on one team, not having a mental lapse, I would bet on them. That's been their trajectory throughout this entire season. We've seen other top teams, Man City's going up and down. Arsenal, they're definitely having a hard time right now. And Manchester United has stayed strong.
Totally.
When I was watching this game, I was mainly impressed by how far Birmingham dropped their line. They were defending in the 18 so much, but their defense within the 18 was organized and consistent, and they just weren't letting Man U get that final pass. That's what they were always cutting off. I'm curious what you saw that made it stand out to you.
I just think the defensive line was so organised. We talk a little bit about the NWSL and sometimes how that back four kind of across most teams kind of comes a bit zigzaggy, and I don't think that's the technical term, but with Birmingham their line was just so
zigzaggy.
You know that
it's not a technical term,
zigzaggy
really.
Line. The Birmingham back line was like so straight you could have put a ruler along it. It was just absolutely spot on. They played the offside trap so well, and then when you got through, you were faced with Hannah Hampton, who, I'm going to say it, is one of the best goalkeepers this season in the WSL. At one point, do you remember Leah Galton gets through one-on-one? She is point blank range, and she manages to save that. Like, it's just, it was absolute genius. And she's so, when you think that you're playing against Manchester United and you know that team has an array of people that can score goals, that's really terrifying as a goalkeeper, because you're not just going, right, okay, I'm looking out for Viv, Miedemar or whatever. You're looking, across an array of players. Personally, I think the time of the goal, it being just after the first half, they would have gone in at halftime, had this amazing team talk. It would have been like, you guys were so well organised, just more of the same, keep it up, frustrate them. In the 80th or 90th, that's when we start to push. We'll maybe throw an extra striker forward. We'll try and get in the counter-attack. Maybe we'll nick all 3 points. But then in the 46th, 47th minute, Man United score. And I think that then it just kind of became a case of, we'll keep our consistency and we'll keep defending, but you kind of knew it was game over. And I know that sounds really negative, but I kind of knew, all right, Man United will win this now.
Absolutely. I think what you said about the first goal is spot on, because, and the reason, if I'm going to try to get inside your head, the reason I think maybe you thought that, and some of us who were watching the game thought that the game was over maybe after 1-0, is because at that point, Birmingham is going to have to shift their formation and actively try to score, which is the complete opposite of their entire game plan and what they've been doing up until then. And when we didn't see that happen, when we didn't see them shift and try to be more attacking oriented, it was kind of like, okay, now we're just hoping for a counterattack opportunity and hoping to put it away and come out with a draw.
Let's go around the world, around the world. Do you want to kick us off?
Did you play anything on your keyboard to put on top of that, Helen?
Stop it. I've been a busy bee. Fine, I'll make a song.
Are you sure you don't want to take Serie A? I know how much you like to say, what is it, Sassuolo?
Sassuolo. They are my favourite team. I love them. In Serie A, there were so many close results. Second place Milan narrowly beat 7th place Fiorentina 2-1. Sassuolo remains in 3rd place in the table after losing 2-0 to Roma, which was a bit of a shock, to be honest, because Roma obviously famously an amazing men's team, but their women's team are kind of on the what's that word? Up and coming? They're kind of up and coming. I'll go with that. Empoli ladies and Fiorentina stayed locked in 4th place after both taking away 3 points for the weekend. A bottom of the table clash on Saturday saw a double red card, with both Napoli FC and Bari drawing red cards in the 83rd minute. The game finished 1-0 to Napoli. If you can watch that game on YouTube, please do, because it is, I know it's only 1-0, but it was fiery as anything. typically Italian. Finally, Juventus continued their winning streak with a 5-0 against Hellas Verona, making that 12 straight matches played and won. They only sit 3 points ahead of Milan, so you never know. It's not all over.
All right, over to Spain, to España for the Primera División. Real Madrid, Atletico, and Levante all sit locked at 31 points, just below Barcelona's 36. Woo-wee! Barcelona has 2 games in hand over Real Madrid and Levante and just 1 over Atletico. Atletico Madrid took home 3 points on Saturday with a 3-0 defeat against middle-of-the-table Sevilla. Levante and Atletico Madrid will clash this coming Thursday, coming up in what will be pretty much a decisive game for the top of the table.
Yeah, that is crucial. And it's crucial that one of them gets 3 points. All Barcelona fans will be hoping for a draw, won't they? Like, separate
Barca
them.
fans will be hoping for a draw. I would love to see somebody get 3 points and see what happens at the top of the table.
Definitely. And I know that you always take the Spanish covering, because then you can do your sexy Spanish accent.
Oh, is it a sexy Spanish accent? We do España.
And then we're going to go over to France, and I'm not going to do any French pronunciation, so dream on. It's still a 2-team battle at the top of the French First Division. I'm so buzzing. PSG had their way against Guingamp on Saturday, winning 5-0, while Lyon took out Paris FC. For anyone that doesn't know, 2 completely separate teams, and they won 5-0 against Paris FC. PSG still lead in the table by 1 point over Lyon. That is going to be meaty, because they'll probably meet again this season, and that will be a crucial clash. Could come down to goal difference at the end of the season, so watch this space.
They are meeting again in March. I already checked it out.
You are so good. Well done.
Got our eyes set on it. That's going to be quite the clash. Like, we're all going to be watching it.
Yeah.
All right, more Spanish for Sarah. Huh? The Pumas, aka UNAM, how we have referred to them previously, are a club based in Mexico City, playing in the Mexican top division. They're the only club to have won every game so far this season. They're 3-0. They lost the playoff final at the start of December last season, so this season, 3 games in, they're out for blood. They tossed aside Monterrey, the team that had beat them comfortably in the playoff final that they lost. But they came back and beat Monterrey 3-0 on the 21st of January, and they sit on their own at the top of the table with 3 out of 3. One more time. With 3 wins out of 3.
Let's talk about your favourite topic. No, not Manchester United.
Arsenal!
The US Women's National Team!
Yeah, I know we've had this conversation before that there's different...
In terms of, I think COVID's had the biggest impact on the NWSL, and it's about whether the NWSL can undo some of the things that have been done to really put it years behind, you know, other leagues and their forward movement. I don't know what you think. I
absolutely agree that I think that the majority of this was because of COVID. I do think that on some level there will continue to be national team players here and there playing in the WSL. But I don't think that we really will ever see such a mass exodus like we just saw. I think we saw the peak of it, and now it's going to deteriorate a little bit. I do want to get into a couple reasons why I think that there still will be some national team players playing abroad, and it's not just going to be everybody returns and it sets back to normal. And within that, kind of address what you just said, Helen, that the NWSL does need to look at themselves as a league and address the issues of why these players moved, and they have. So to start with, why some national team players in the US, I believe, will continue to play abroad and in the WSL. As I mentioned, their contracts are very intricate, and we're not going to get into the details of it, but essentially the NWSL employs the US Soccer Federation through a contract that states that U.S. Soccer will pay for some national team players and salaries, plus about 22 other players' salaries. We can call them like bubble players for the national team. So what that means is, in exchange, the teams and the league limit the number of players who can go overseas. So this was all created under Jill Ellis, under the umbrella of Jill Ellis as the national team coach. And she was a huge proponent of growing the game at home and keeping national team players at home so that they can help grow the league in order to grow the game. Vlatko, the new national team coach, believes that it's in players' best interest to go abroad and experience different coaching styles, different playing styles, different environments, and learn from that, and that's how they'll grow. And then come back to the US and help grow the game eventually there. So the reason why this all intertwines is because the next revisit to this contract is actually due at the end of 2021. So all of this could change dramatically by the end of 2021. But the point is that it is very hard for people in the US, specifically national team players, to move abroad. And there's another actually FA rule that requires people from that requires players from outside the EU to have played in 75% of their senior national team's competitive matches in the 2-year period leading up to their visa. So you mentioned Jess Fishlock, you mentioned Rachel Daly. They are excluded from that because they're obviously citizens of where they're going to be playing. Somebody like Christy Mewis, for example, who has not played in 75% of her senior national team's matches, cannot go play abroad right now. She cannot go play in the FA because she will have needed 2 years of playing in 75% of her national team matches to go play abroad. So that rule in itself.
And is that restriction
yes,
put on
that's
by
put
us,
on by the FA.
By the UK?
So there's kind of...
Okay. That is
it's
so
wild. Yeah, so there's kind of two pieces holding a lot of players, a lot of US players back in the NWSL. And that's a huge reason why I think that we're never going to see such a huge mass exodus. I think we saw it, like you just mentioned, because of COVID, and players wanted matches and they went over there, and, bonus that they can get paid more. But I do think that for all of those reasons, we're never going to see such a mass exodus to the point where we're worried that, the NWSL is going to collapse or something. Because as a league, they're still trying to do everything that they can to keep their players and treat them well. It's impossible, frankly, for the NWSL to compete with salaries that clubs like Manchester City can offer, simply because the NWSL doesn't have the backing that a club like Manchester City has. However, the NWSL has made massive strides and massive changes on a yearly basis to try to help their players along. So the players' maximum and minimum salaries on a yearly basis. So I just hit my microphone. Did that hurt your ears? Sorry.
Yeah, I know, I could hear it. Yeah. I'm also wearing these noise cancelling ones, so it was really inside my head.
Just gave Helen a headache.
My brain just jiggled.
Minor concussion. So the players' maximum and minimum salaries have grown with the league. So these salaries that I'm about to mention are seasonal. So in 2013, when the NWSL started, the minimum salary for the season for a player was $6,000. The maximum was $30,000. Yeah, and so since then, the league has done everything they can to grow these minimums and maximums every single year. Like, you can look from 2013 all the way to 2020, and every single year they grow. Now in 2020, it's changed from a $20,000 Now in 2020, it's changed to a $20,000 minimum and a $50,000 maximum.
I have a question. Is $20,000 livable? Like, can you live on $20,000 in America?
Depending on the city, $50,000 is really hard to swing. Depending on the city, you can't live on $50,000 a year in New York. Obviously, we're talking about the season, so the season isn't a year, but you can't live that.
Wow.
Or you very, very not comfortably. Yeah.
Very not
the opposite of comfortably.
Very not comfortably.
I say this just to highlight, number one, that the NWSL is doing everything that they can, but the league can only grow so fast. And what the NWSL is being very careful of is to not repeat previous mistakes. There have been previous professional women's leagues in this country that have folded because they have tried to grow too quickly. And the NWSL is trying to do everything in their power to make sure that they are a sustainable league, that while they are growing, they're growing at a rate that they can sustain. And over time, which will unfortunately be a longer period of time, those minimums and maximums will continue to grow as investments grow, as the markets grow, and so on and so forth.
Thinking about it from like a business perspective, NWSL is the only company, as it were, in inverted commas, that has to be self-sufficient, because Manchester City can start, funneling money from other pockets that they already have, and they can use the women's team as part of their umbrella project. So Manchester City Football Club isn't just a men's team, it's an academy, it's that the women's team is part of. So if they want to pay a player £100,000 a year, $150,000 a year to play for their football club, that money isn't necessarily coming from the women's part, that's just coming from the Manchester City part. So I completely respect that the NWSL is trying what they can do to be self-sufficient, because they haven't got pots of money that they can kind of go to and rely on if shit hits the fan.
Absolutely. And that's partly why you see the US Soccer Federation being looped into some of these contracts, because to pay some of these national team players plus some of these other bubble players more money, they had to loop in the federation. And so that's where that exchange came from.
So whose team are you on? Are you on Team Vladko or are you on Team Jill? Like, which do you personally think is better for the players?
I think that's a different question. I think what's better for the players is for them to go have different experiences. I think that you can look at Sam Mewis as such a great example of this. Sam Mewis was always a good player, but it seems that the strides that she's made since going abroad, and maybe it's just the confidence, maybe it's the confidence plus something about playing in the WSL that made other things click, she has come back a much better player, in my opinion. So, and as a player myself, it's important to have different environments and learn from different coaches and just gain as much knowledge as possible. As a fan, I was very worried when I heard that Jill Ellis was stepping down, because I started to be concerned about the NWSL. I feared exactly what's happening now. I feared when Jill Ellis stepped down. I thought all of the stars are going to go abroad now that it's not necessarily going to be mandated or in their contracts that they have to stay. I don't know if it necessarily was, but it did feel like there was something about Jill Ellis that made sure that these national team stars really stayed in the country. And when she stepped down, I was very worried about the state of the NWSL, because I feared that it could decline with stars going abroad. It's nice to see now that when stars go abroad, it doesn't mean that there's a decline for the NWSL, because the pool of players in the NWSL is so exciting, and the system that we've built here in this country for women's soccer that leads into the NWSL is so exciting that it really doesn't mean the decline. Also because, frankly, you're never going to get all stars going abroad. People have lives here. Like, it's just, you're never going to see all, 18 rostered players. Exactly.
Juliet is an example. Juliet is never going to leave America. But you do just think, shirt sales and stuff with the word Heath on the back probably really affect the club's overall take home at the end of the season.
And I mean, people probably went to Portland Thorns games to see Tobin Heath. Portland Thorns fans will go see Portland play because they love Portland, so all credit to Portland Thorns fans. They're absolutely amazing. But of course they sold some tickets because of the name Tobin Heath that every single person knows. Purchasing a ticket, going to the stadium. Absolutely. There's value in that.
Well, that I've learned so much genuinely in that. I sound like I'm being a patronising, sarcastic bitch, but honestly, taking off my British hat for a moment, I genuinely learned so much there. I did not know about those legislations between a US Women's National Team manager and the US Soccer and the NWSL. I did not know that they were in place, and I didn't know that the salaries had improved so much over the years. So genuine learnings from my side. So thank you so much.
So sensitive.
I'm going to write you a card. I'm going to make it really sensitive. I'm going to be like, you're the best thing to ever happen to me. We have still been working on our Patreon. Just to let you know, it's free for the rest of this month because we decided to make January free for no apparent reason other than January sucks. So we thought...
Lots of people are doing dry January too, so you need a little extra help when you're doing dry January.
Oh, something to get you through. So if you want to go and check it out, please do. It's patreon.com/The Woso Show. We're over on socials at The Woso Show. Thank you so much for tuning in this week. I've been Helen.
Thanks, everyone. I've been Sarah.
We're The Woso Show. Thank you. Bye.